Hello, and welcome to our next edition of Super Saturday Nostalgia. I am the Athletic Geek, and I am joined by
Isaac Lee.
All right, and today, this is the one I've been looking forward to. Maybe I'm not gonna say the most, but really been looking forward to since we started this project. It is the first episode of the Fox Kids Spider-Man or Spider-Man the Animated Series. There's no real official title. It's whichever works better, but this was a fantastic show. This was
The whole series was fantastic.
Oh yeah, so many things that they were able to do. It really felt like a moving comic book because like they had a lot of inner monologue, that they would use on the show. But the one thing that really stood out to me was this was my gateway drug into Marvel, because it wouldn't happen in this one. This will be in future episodes, but you would have cameos and guest appearances from Blade, Punisher, Daredevil, even Iron Man. Even though he had his own show, this is how I first learned of Iron Man, was through all their appearances on the Spider-Man show, and then it would
Captain America and Daredevil are two of my favorite. Like, they're iconic characters to me because I experienced them through the Spider-Man TV.
And then I didn't know they
animated TV series.
Yeah, and then I'd go to the time they had comic books at Walmart, and then I'd see Daredevil has his own comic book. I thought he was just Spider-Man's friend,
Yeah.
And then that's what got me interested in all these other characters. So this show is really brought to life a lot of those characters, or introduced me, I guess I should say. But
yeah,
we're not going to waste any more time. The version that we have, because unfortunately this has not had any true commercial DVD release. However, I believe it is available for streaming on Amazon Video. So if you want to watch it on there, fast forward through the intro, because the version we have does not have the intro. And if you want to follow along with us, press play now. I really, the one thing that I always liked as a kid, was whenever I would watch this and Batman together, and Batman would always be at night, and then Spider-Man would always be during the daytime. I always thought that was kind of cool, because I might be mistaken, but how I remember, and this might be, somebody who knows the Fox Kid lineup better than I do from 1994, might tell me differently, but I always remember Batman being on first, and then it would go into Spider-Man to be it goes from nighttime into daytime. I always thought that was cool as a kid. I got to watch the cool Batman show, and it's nighttime, and then get the bright show with Spider-Man. But
see, I remember more of X-Men and Spider-Man because they were on Saturday mornings, and whenever I'd get off the bus from school,
that's what
I would always miss because Batman was never on Saturdays for me. It was on right at 3:00.
I remember, this Batman was on WB at first, or I was on Fox Kids at first before the WB. It's cool how they're doing the lizard eyes to show how paranoid he is, and then you can also see some stylistic changes. I guess they were trying to experiment with that kind of 3D visuals at the time. Whether or not you think it looks dated and hokey now, but at the time I'm I wish the whole show could be like that. They're really just kind of throwing you right into the episode here. There's no real. They don't really put in a lot of backstory for Spider-Man. At least not in episode 1. I know they touch on it later.
Yeah, it's almost like they're just getting you ready for this is the entire series.
Yeah, because they don't really introduce anybody. The last 2 weeks we watched X-Men, you could tell there was introductions. But there is no, hey, here's Peter, here's Spider-Man, you're getting ready to meet, for the first time on here, J. Jonah Jameson, and they don't really establish anything. It's just kind of okay, here they are, and then you just kind of learn about them later.
Yeah.
Which, I guess as a kid at work, because like I didn't question it, but like now I'd be going, why aren't you explaining who these people are to me?
See, to me, that kind of hooks me, because there's a question of who those people are. If I see it slowly develop, I kind of lose interest faster.
Right.
I mean, no, it's not. I think a lot more people like they more so want to grow with the character, whereas I like to see an established character and then kind of backtrack.
Right. Got the great Ed Asner doing the voice of J. Jonah Jameson here. He does a fantastic job. And Eddie Brock, which everybody knows where his storyline will eventually go.
That reminds me, I picked up a miniseries about. It was I think it's one of the first series where Venom, like, started to turn into like more of an anti-hero.
Is it the Lethal Protector series or?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have some of those.
And that was, I really enjoyed that series.
Mm-hmm.
It made me all the more excited for the movie that's about to come out.
Yeah, gonna date ourselves here a little bit. The Venom movie has not yet come out at the time of our recording, but I'm sure on the Facebook blog I'll let you know my thoughts on that. But looks cool. But we got.
I've got high hopes for it.
Right.
I mean, I don't get too ramped up for all these movies. Just kind of wait for them to come out and go enjoy them. But I mean, it's
never knew Spider-Man had a flashlight in his belt. Not meaning to cut you off, but
yeah, I didn't really get that whole thing.
That's not kind of like Spider-Man's version of the cellophane ash from Superman 2?
You got me.
But
I don't know. It didn't really make much sense to me for Spider-Man to have so many gadgets. I mean, he obviously has his web shooters, but
right.
I mean that obviously has that's a big part of the character. But the whole flashlight on the belt thing, I mean, I guess if he could build artificial webbing, then
I mean,
it's more capable of building a
later
flashlight.
On, revisiting the series, I might end up contradicting myself later on down the road. So this is just kind of my way of covering my own ass. I don't know if that gets used again.
But the flashlight?
The flashlight on his belt, yeah.
Yeah,
it does?
Every once in a while it pops up on the show, but I just thought it was always so
it's just not something
weird.
It didn't really stand out to me watching this, as a kid, subsequent extra viewing, so it's like... But I mean, I'm talking about it now, so...
Well, it just... Aside from the web shooters, it never really seemed like Spider-Man was much of a gadget kind of character. And then they just throw that
They've really done a good job building up this reveal.
Yeah. And there he is.
And like, even still, you don't see it you still see it in the shadows. So that's stylistically, it looks really cool.
And he's wearing purple pants.
What is it with Marvel and purple pants? If you're a scientist in Marvel, you wore purple pants. Bruce Banner did. Dr. Connors did. If you were,
both of them turned green.
Yeah, if you were a scientist with a PhD in the Marvel universe, you wore purple pants. And turned green.
That showed up a lot in the DC villains as well. Joker, for instance, green and purple. Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
A lot of those characters.
Yeah.
For at least for a long period of their time in comics and stuff, they would be shown depicted in green and purple. I never really quite understood that color choice.
Looks like even
there's
Dr. Connors has purple pants again.
I've had some people tell me that green was a color of both royalty and the lower classes back in the day. But I just thought that was
It's interesting.
Yeah.
It wasn't until you mentioned that I actually thought about, like, yeah, there's gray and purple seem to just be like the color schemes. Not a lot of.
But and look at Spider-Man, look at Superman. Like blue and red,
yeah,
together for some characters, and
yeah, no, I mean, and finally you get to see the full lizard, and
I'm gonna look more into that to try to figure that out.
Right. So we'll put the whenever we come back with more of an answer, we'll do like the comic book, put the little asterisk, see Super Saturday Nostalgia, Episode 4, The Night of the Lizard. Refer back to that to know where this reference came from. Pre-Venomed Eddie Brock there. I mean, sorry if that's a spoiler for you, but I mean, if you're listening to two yahoos do alternate commentary, I would assume that you've seen the show once before. It's like I get the cool thing is, since you can't see Spider-Man's mouth, you can tell like a comic book, like part of it's like he's speaking it, but like some of the other things, it's his inner monologue, like he mentioned when he dropped his camera, he mentioned there goes my $1,000 bonus. Like I could see that in the comic book playing out. He has a quick one-liner, drops it, and then they have the thought bubble of, well, there goes my $1,000 bonus. So that is just something that always I didn't think about as a kid, but like whenever I reviewed this as a teenager, that was like the first thing that my head went to, is like, oh, it's like comic books actually being played out, because I'd read the comic books and I'd be like, well, when I watch the TV show, they're not thinking as much. But on here, it's like they are. And going through the origin of Dr. Connors becoming the Lizard. I venture to say that like Spider-Man has some of the most tragic rogues gallery. I mean, like even maybe more so than Batman. I'm not gonna. It's another debate for another day which one's better, but I feel like the backstories of all Spider-Man's rogues are very tragic.
Yeah,
like you have Doc Ock is kind of tragic. Connors for the Lizard,
I think that I think
Scorpion.
I think that's why I think it's partly why he's a beloved character, just like Batman. Like when the villains define the hero. Well, and
it's nice. Like, but there's so many like Batman villains that are interesting, but sometimes they're still like driven by ego. Like the Riddler's still driven by ego. I mean, like Joker's just crazy.
But those aren't people that
we
relate to.
But you can relate more to some of Spider-Man's not just Spider-Man's character, but Spider-Man's rogues too. Whereas even Batman's rogues, some of them, they're badass and they're interesting, but not quite as relatable as Spider-Man. That doesn't mean one or the other's better. It's just an observation. Because Doc Ock went through tragedy to become Doc Ock. Lizard's gone through tragedy to become the Lizard, and granted, Scorpion through manipulation for wanting to kill Spider-Man, but still, like, his life gets ruined, out of just listening to the wrong people.
Well, it's even like their street level, which their problems. A lot of the people in these, even though there's a lot of science, there's a lot of sci-fi like tech and stuff like that people seem to just stumble upon and something happens to them. But at the same time, like like one of the episodes that always stood out to me was the Prowler. Mm-hmm. Don't really know much else about the Prowler to this day, other than he made some appearances, and I know that like in the early '90s they were spewing out all kinds of other characters,
right?
Trying to see what would stick. And in the time they were using up a lot of really cool, simple names for characters, and then they don't stick, and then they're used up. But the Prowler was one that like a guy grew up his whole life without any sense of control over his life. Like who can't relate to that,
right?
And then he just when he thinks he's finally found a way out, he's really screwed himself because now he's stuck in a suit he can't get out of, and it tortures him until he...
There's the guy from earlier. You can tell, like, they had, like, that one sound on standby, because it sounds like, you know, like... It sounds like somebody dropping a dumbbell. Like, this is... I think this was... These cartoons were still when they used, like, a Foley artist. I remember, like, as a kid watching... for the Nickelodeon cartoons, like, learning what a Foley artist was. So I'm thinking probably in this one, they probably had somebody, like, dropping, like, a dumbbell, like, on the ground to make that noise. And you have the, you know, like, you can see, like, how Connors is still in the lizard. It makes you feel even worse. That's one of the things in the Amazing Spider-Man I thought they did really... I thought they did the lizard well. I wasn't really a big fan of the look, but I really liked the lizard story well.
Yeah.
They do, you know, the one of the things I've noticed about these Marvel cartoons in comparison to the DC cartoons. Now, granted, the DC cartoons, you know, in that shared universe, the Timverse, you know, as it's coming on, are all outstanding. But they do a lot of comic book things in both those. I remember we mentioned last week on the show, you know, in between trinkets barks. They kind of do a Days of Future Past in the X-Men, but they do like the Sinister Six. They kind of, you know, they like do all these different Spider-Man story arcs, but do like the cartoon twist on it, you know. And they do the Spider-Man of Different Earths, you know, which is kind of a nice go-to that they do even to this day in Spider-Man comics. There's, well, this is this version Spider-Man, and they did something like that.
Yeah,
you know.
I've even got one of my favorite versions of them on the wall right over there.
Right, yeah, the
Scarlet Spider.
Yeah, they have the Scarlet, you know, and they bring the Scarlet Spider in for that. They have one where he actually meets the guy who, like, an actor who plays Spider-Man, and then he talks to Stan Lee.
Yeah.
So they do, like, all the different, when they do stuff like that, you know, it's kind of like, you know, it's kids' TV, but they also throw a bone to, at that time, to those that were reading the comics. And then, like, now you have people like us nowadays that have grown up, read the comics, and you're watching the show, and they're like, I'll be damned, they did that, you know? That was kind of a terrifying shot of the lizard there. That was really cool. I'm not just like, I mean, I think stylistically of all the shows that we cover or will cover on this show, I still believe that Batman the Animated Series was stylistically my favorite to look at, but I mean, for all of its flaws here, this is still a really well animated show.
Oh, I love the animation.
I mean,
it
doesn't stand up so well today, but I mean, like, I'm still getting, like, still pretty impressed by it now.
Well, I mean, I prefer the X-Men style the most, or the over any of them, but...
Really?
Yeah, but, I mean, it's certainly something different with you know, all the Bruce Timm and,
Paul Dini.
Yeah, Paul Dini. You know, all their projects on the other, on the DC stuff. I mean, it's very cool, like, stylistically, but I don't know. It's just the Fox and the Fox Kids cartoons, just the style. I just love it.
Yeah, the one thing I can say that, you know, they were all different studios, but I can say without hyperbole, all the shows that we've covered so far and that we will cover, they all capture the the style captures what the character is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Batman was, they captured what Batman needs to feel like very well. The darkness, the film noir, gangster kind of style of it, where X-Men had that gritty 90s style that you need. This kind of had a more lighthearted, but, still very, where I'm looking for. I'm looking for, need your vocabulary now. Like, is fit the character, being light, but could also be very serious, at times. And then, in the coming weeks, we'll be looking at Superman the Animated Series, and it's very optimistic looking, so all the shows, despite being done by different people at different times, they've all really captured their character well. And I thought that was kind of something that I don't feel like I see enough in cartoons today, where it's kind of like everything kind of feels like homogenized. Everything's like just the same,
Yeah, I don't know really. I can't put my thumb on it. It's just
everything feels the same. Like all the new cartoons, the atmosphere, the style just felt like, okay, well, we're gonna do a Batman this way. We're gonna do a Green Lantern this way. Okay, well, we're gonna do the Avengers this way. We're gonna do the Guardians this way. And that's not a knock on the shows, but it's just kind of how things have changed over the years as far as superhero cartoons are concerned. But that was the first episode, and it's even better than I remember it. I'm glad I watched it today. Like I was pointing out new things that I didn't even realize. I'm sure I've watched that episode. Jeez, I don't even know how many times. But
I've been through the entire series at least a dozen times.
I know I've been through the whole series 3. And I know I've watched the first.
But once
the first season, because those were all the one parters I can just throw in and enjoy. I know I've seen those at least double that. And that concludes this edition of Super Saturday Nostalgia. I am the Athletic Geek. Be sure to go like my Facebook page for more content at facebook.com/athleticgeek89. Content from all things geek culture, you can find it there. And my partner in crime is
Isaac Lee. Come visit my Facebook page at ILH Studios. Check out some of the artwork, and never be afraid to ask for commissions.
Yes, in fact, we encourage commissions because they're good commissions, and they would make a great piece for your collection. But for Isaac Lee, I am the Athletic Geek, and we are out.